Yeah, nice one, Mikey. So we are going to be chatting to Daniel Harris in just a moment about that last night, about Manchester United's defeat to Derby County and what the hell is happening behind closed doors. Another chapter yet again with Pogba stripped of the captaincy. Before all that, let's hear from the man himself, Jose Mourinho, speaking after their defeat in the Carabao Cup last night.
The Carabao Cup is not a worry anymore because we don't play until the next season. Is the minor of the competitions we are involved, but I would lie if I say that we threw the match away. No, we want to win the match, and we are disappointed that we drew. And like I told the players in team talk before the match, the new rules, which I agree with the new rules, and I don't disagree because I lost, the new rules would put the favorite team more in danger, because with the draw you had in the past 30 more minutes to play, without the extra time you go direct to penalties, and I think goes against the team that normally in 30 minutes extra time would win the match. So then you go to penalties, and I never blame a player to lose a penalty, especially because we know clearly, because we trained and because we knew that when it goes in the direction of Jones, Eric Bailly, we would be in trouble then. No, the only truth is that I made the decision of Paul not to be the second captain anymore, but no fallout, no problems at all. The same person that decides that Paul is not the second captain anymore was exactly the same person that decides that Paul was the second captain, myself. I'm the manager, I can make these decisions. No fallout at all, no problems at all, just one decision that I don't have to explain. Thank you.
Yeah, Jose Mourinho there speaking in the wake of Manchester United's defeat to Derby County in the Carabao Cup. Paul Pogba no longer the vice-captain for Manchester United. Daniel Harris, good morning to you.
Morning.
So the initial thing that kind of struck me here from seeing this is, why the hell did Jose Mourinho ever make Paul Pogba vice-captain?
I guess it was some kind of attempt at a rapprochement where he's saying, I'm going to trust you to do all the things I want you to do, and also, there aren't that many players in the team. There aren't very many candidates. There's not much personality in the team, and there's not much top class in the team, and there aren't that many players. You could say automatic selections. Really, like looking back, the sensible thing would have been to make De Gea captain, probably, because he's the best player in the team. He seems to just do what the necessary is, and gets picked every week.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you kind of look at that, like as an overall thing, the idea of Paul Pogba as vice-captain was something, I guess, as you say, to try and tackle what might be seen as kind of a slight on Jose Mourinho's authority. And overall, Paul Pogba, what he said after the first night of the season when he had to keep things to himself, I think after the Leicester game, that there are some things that he can say and some things that might get him a fine. But now it seems that those things have been aired in public. But Jose Mourinho would have been privy to all of this. He surely would have been he would have known what the idea of what Paul Pogba was trying to say after that first night in Leicester. It's just that he said it in public now. It is the attack comment after the weekend. Surely this is why this has happened.
I mean, I thought, that attack comment was ridiculous, really. I mean, I think the way that they played against Wolves, to me, it didn't particularly seem like they weren't looking to score. It just seemed like they didn't know how to score. It was more an error of method rather than of philosophy or whatever you want to call it. And it seemed particularly ridiculous that Pogba had the brass neck to come gobbing off after that game when it was his carelessness in possession that had led to Wolves' equaliser. And that is the part of the problem with Pogba is he goes on like he's Brian Robson, but he plays not like Brian Robson. His assist for the goal was beautiful, but he didn't do very much else in the game. And when that is the case, you don't really have the political capital to go about like you're something that you're not. Paul Pogba's an amazing talent, but we're not seeing the best of that amazing talent. We haven't seen the best of that amazing talent in more than 2 years at United, and it seems that he needs everything to be perfectly as he wants it to be in order to be the player that he should be, and that's not a great player. And so Paul Pogba really needs to be looking at himself rather than criticising other people, because he's not really leading the team. He's not elevating the level of the team. And I understand why Paul Pogba might want to leave United. He is the most talented player at the club, and he wants to win things, and that's fine. But before that happens, he should be doing everything that he can to make the team better, and the team should be better because he's in it. And we're not seeing that at all at the moment, and that's not on Jose Mourinho, really. That's on him.
So it is obviously a power struggle here. But overall, this whole thing, it seems, might actually play in Paul Pogba's favour a small bit here, that ultimately he gets not just the ego boost, but a little bit of a power boost as well from initially being handed this vice captaincy. The fact that it's actually been taken away from him, I don't know, maybe that kind of increases the sense of ego. Maybe he's thinking to himself now, well, clearly I matter deeply to the thoughts of Jose Mourinho right now. And I just don't see how this is going to quell the influence of Paul Pogba, or whatever influence he does wield in the dressing room.
Well, it looks like he's trying to make positions untenable, whether it's his own position untenable so that United have to sell him, or it's make the manager's position untenable so that he gets a new manager, because it does seem like that's what he wants to be the case. And as I said, I understand why Paul Pogba's not happy with Jose Mourinho. I understand why he's not happy with how things are going at United, but he also ought to be unhappy with himself. As for who's got the power at United, it's quite hard to see. I mean, Woodward appears to have lost faith with Mourinho, but hasn't got the testicles to actually do anything about it. Pogba isn't doing enough on the pitch to make him someone that you should value over the manager. And Woodward doesn't really know what he's doing. It's one of those delicious situations where everyone involved comes off like a moron.
Yeah, well, there's absolutely no argument about that. Like, speaking of Woodward, there was, of course, the chat about United's revenues yesterday. Woodward doubling down on the idea that, we are Manchester United, we are the biggest team in the world, and I guess he had figures to actually back that up when it comes to huge revenue, still growing, still trending in the right direction financially. And Paul Pogba, in the eyes of Ed Woodward, is probably a highly important part of their commercial appeal.
Yeah, but it's a load of bollocks, really, isn't it? Because you don't measure size of football clubs in bank and balance sheets. And it's one of the idiocies and annoyances of modern football that we know things like terms like amortization and paying kind loans and all of this kind of nonsense. The biggest club in the world is Real Madrid because they win the most things. And if we're talking about size in other aspects too, if they want a player, that player tends to go to Real Madrid. The idea that United are the biggest club in the world is rubbish. It's marketing nonsense, because that's not what football is. Again, though, it doesn't really matter who's the biggest club in the world. My dad's bigger than your dad. I can clap louder than you. It just doesn't mean anything. What football's about? It's about glory, and it's about success, and it's about an environment for like-minded people to come together. And that's how all these clubs started, and that's how they should all continue to be. So what Woodward says is, really, not without agenda anyway. What's Woodward trying to do? He's trying to solidify his own position after appointing. He's now the third manager that's been appointed, that he's been involved in the appointment of post-Fergie. United haven't won the league in those seasons. They haven't got anywhere near winning the league in those seasons, and they're watching their greatest rivals improve at the same time. So Woodward's got an agenda, and his agenda currently, it's easy to, the best way of satisfying that agenda, or representing that agenda, I should say, is to represent the business, because the business is growing. But that doesn't matter. No one's going to look at United and say, well, look at those balance sheets, apart from the Glazers, and those are his bosses. But that's not how the world perceives United, and looks at them and says, oh, look at the size, wow. Really.
Daniel, you picked up on something there, saying that Real Madrid are the biggest club in the world because they always win things, and with United now out of the League Cup, they'll be fighting on 3 other fronts. Can they win a trophy this year?
They can, because we've seen bad teams win the FA Cup. We've seen, they're not going to win the league this season. I don't think anyone thought they were going to win the league this season. But to be 8 points off the top at this point is not really acceptable. This team is better than that. It's better than 8 points off the lead at this point, or at least it should be better than that. The players are better than that. And I don't think anyone expected United to challenge for the league, but to not make any pretense of challenging for the league is not good enough, really. Obviously, they can win the FA Cup. It's a cup competition. And, the Champions League is... it sounds absurd to talk about United winning the Champions League, but it's a cup competition. Worse teams than this United team have won the Champions League, so it's always possible. And there's not any, the standard of football in Europe right now is not particularly high. There's no great team particularly. Real Madrid, I guess, are a great team because look at what they've done, but they've sort of come to the end now. They've lost Ronaldo. The better players are starting to get a bit older, so they're not great. Barcelona aren't a great team, but they've got Messi. City have got some excellent players, but they don't have a defence. And I mean, if you look at the Premier League, I mean, Liverpool top of the Premier League, for example, who are a good team, but if you put this current Liverpool team against any of the proper teams that have won the English leagues, I don't think Mourinho's Chelsea of 2005 or Fergie's United teams that won leagues would be thinking, oh, well scared of this Liverpool team. They're all right, they're decent, but they're not a great team. So the standard is not particularly high. So United could win the Champions League, but at the same time, I mean, lots of things could happen, and those things.
Previous point about revenue, because you say it doesn't matter, and obviously it doesn't matter to you and I, it doesn't matter to the football fan out there, but I think it really does matter to the people that matter, to the likes of the Ed Woodwards of the world, the chief executives all around Europe. They obviously care about the bottom line. I mean, the Cristiano Ronaldo move is an exact example of Juventus trying to do that exact thing, which is become the biggest club in Europe, and as a result, to kind of quest to become the best club in Europe is sort of lessening a little bit. Is that diminishing the talent on the field, or is that just two completely unconnected things?
100% the chief executives care about balance sheets, and I mean, it's their job to, but the only point of a healthy balance sheet in a football club beyond that is to facilitate the football club. Of course, the owners, if you've got owners that want to take money out, like the Glazers, for example, like they're not at all about United succeeding, to the extent that as much as it compromises their ability to take money out. So if you look at United now, they'd have looked at the beginning of the season and they'd have thought, right, well, this team should get into the top four. They could chuck an infinite amount of money at it and still not win the league. So why would they do that? Because they're not in it for the prestige of winning leagues. They're in it for filling their pockets. And we've seen that over the course of the last 13 years. And in the first 10 of those years, they had Fergie's genius to call upon. So it was fine. Fergie's genius covered up the fact that no one was that bothered about winning things at the top of United. But you gave the example of Juventus, who bought Cristiano Ronaldo, and he'll make them the biggest club in Europe. But sure, I'm sure he's earning them a stack of money with marketing. But the most money that he will earn them will be in the money that he puts, and the money that he gets them in TV revenue because he's really good at football, the money that he gets them in bums on seats because he's really good at football, the money that they get for each additional Champions League point because he's really good at football. And you can say that there is money to be made in signing a name like Ronaldo, but in the end, they signed Ronaldo because he's a brilliant footballer, and he is slightly over the hill and on the way down now, but he's still a brilliant footballer, and that's why they bought him. And it's not really about the money necessarily, but about being good at football. And we've seen that with Juventus. Juventus won 7 league titles in a row. So I don't think we can really put them in the same category as United, who've won no league titles in a row.
Yeah, just kind of like a final point on this, like with connection to Pogba then. Like, do you think that if it came to a situation where Paul Pogba goes to Ed Woodward and says either I leave or Jose Mourinho leaves, do you think it would actually come into the Manchester United board's head that people follow individuals now rather than teams? And when I say people, I mean, millennials. I mean people who play FIFA and they've got Paul Pogba in their ultimate team, and therefore they follow him as much as they follow the club, etc., etc. That they would actually think to themselves, well, think of all the Instagram followers who are going to unfollow us, just like all those people who unliked Real Madrid on Instagram and Cristiano Ronaldo left them in the summer. It's a ridiculous notion, but is there actually a realistic possibility that this would be a factor were this situation to come to a head?
I don't think it would necessarily look at the Instagram following situation, but I definitely think that Pogba is a central part of their marketing strategy. Jesus Christ, we're supposed to be talking about football here. But yeah, a central part of their marketing strategy. But I don't think it's exactly about that. I think it is, if Mourinho had fortified his position with success, then it would be whatever Mourinho wanted to happen would happen. But the fact is Mourinho is not doing particularly well at the moment. The team don't look like they're knowing what they're doing. They do still look like they're playing for him, but it's hard to see what the plan is. And although it's a really difficult situation, I said, where everyone is wrong, but Mourinho has improved United in the time that he's been there. He's done an okay job until now, but clearly the board don't back him because they refused to back him in the summer. And not only that, but they publicly challenged his judgment. So if Pogba went to Woodward and said it's him or me, I definitely think that Woodward would be thinking about it, but not solely for money, but also because I think that he's lost faith with Mourinho, not without reason, but at the same time, Woodward is not qualified to make any kind of football decision whatsoever, and we've seen that over and over again. So, there's no good outcome to that. And for me, as someone, I support Manchester United, so looking at it as a supporter, I want Pogba to stay, but at the same time, if Pogba went and said either me or the manager goes, I'd give Pogba a lift to the airport, because there's a particular way of behaving that the way that Paul Pogba would be. I mean, I feel bad in a way criticising Pogba for something that he hasn't done. There have been elements of insubordination against the manager that definitely don't sit right with me, and don't sit right with me partly because he just hasn't earned the right to do any of this stuff with his performances on the pitch. And if you look at the people that have played for United in his position that haven't done that, like Brian Robson basically suffered through the 80s carrying the team, did not behave like a throbber when talking to the press, despite the fact that he had done a lot more for the team than Pogba ever had. When Roy Keane had his pay dispute after the treble season, he is someone who had done an immense amount for United over years. And again, like, he didn't fight that salary battle out in public. He carried on performing on the pitch in every single game, and never could he be accused of not putting it in. Never could he be accused of not leading his teammates who were less good than he was. And you're not seeing that from Pogba. So there's plenty of wrong in Mourinho not getting the best out of Pogba, not putting the right players around Pogba and stuff. But at the same time, Pogba seems to be a kind of guy who wants everything to be exactly to his choosing in order to succeed. And watching him on the pitch, sometimes it looks like he's decided, I'm going to play well today, I'm not going to play well today. And so if it did come to a Pogba or Mourinho situation, I mean, almost reluctantly, for me, it would be Mourinho. And anyway, I don't trust Ed Woodward to make the right decision. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's a rather dystopian future that I think we're all living in, and we're actually having conversations about Instagram people unliking you if your star player leaves. But there is a supposedly good game of football actually happening tonight between Liverpool and Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. Like, when you think about those sort of free spirits that exist in football clubs, the likes of Paul Pogba, it strikes me that Maurizio Sarri would be a perfect manager for Manchester United at this point. Like, if you look at this Chelsea team this season and the way Eden Hazard is playing, just in that freer role, of course, the idea of Hazard as someone who would let the team down and who would go off in a huff, he doesn't have that potential anywhere near like Paul Pogba does. But it does seem that he's being helped hugely by the fact that he's got a manager who's quite understanding of his needs to be kind of to fulfill a role that's full of flair.
Yeah, I mean, Sarri's an interesting example, and not just Sarri, but also even Frank Lampard, whose team we saw last night, and Bielsa at Leeds, where managers have come in and in a matter of weeks, they've changed the way that a team plays and got them playing good football in a way that Mourinho hasn't been able to do in 2 years. And it's true that Sarri has got Hazard playing well, but then, I mean, Mourinho managed that too. But I think the comparison with Mourinho and Sarri doesn't look right for Mourinho when you look at how quickly they've managed to get a team playing well, incorporate by two new midfield players, and got them doing it. I mean, it's also fair to say that Chelsea haven't had a particularly challenging schedule, but he has got them playing in a particular way, in the way that all Sarri teams play, very quickly. And that doesn't look good for Mourinho, much more so than what he's getting out of Hazard, because I think Mourinho got good football out of Hazard too. As far as comparing Hazard and Pogba go, I mean, I think Hazard's slightly different because Hazard's an attacker, so he doesn't have as much responsibility, and he's also a bit further along in his career than Pogba is. But there are definitely, as I said, the comparison between Mourinho and Sarri doesn't look particularly good for Mourinho, other than if you look at what Sarri has done in the game in a lot of years and what Mourinho has done in the game. The problem for Mourinho is, over the last bit of time, it's looked like he's lost the magic. Like, he's not rubbish. He's still, like, getting that team to second place last season was as high as that team was ever going to get. The way that he got them there was not so good, but it looks Mourinho appears to have lost his magic and is kind of frantically searching to find something, and it doesn't really look like that's something that's likely to happen in the future. As for Sarri, I mean, he's someone who seems to have hit his stride at a much older age than Mourinho did, and it'll be interesting to see how Liverpool do against Chelsea, but I would have Chelsea do against Liverpool tonight. But I think what will probably happen is Jurgen Klopp won't play a full team, because he knows that much as he needs to win something, what he really needs to do is win the league, and that's what he'll be trying to do.
Daniel, has Maurizio Sarri been in a bit of an envious position that he's able to take Jorginho from Napoli and build literally his whole team around him? Because, I mean, he's touching the ball two times every minute over the last while. So it's a bit of a hard sell that's saying that his impact is better than Mourinho's, because, I mean, he's literally just imported the player that he built his team around at Napoli.
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't think his impact. It's not so much his impact has been better than Mourinho. It's more about imposing a particular style on the team in a very short period of time. It's not whether he's made a team better than Mourinho. It's that he's turned up and said, "This is the way that my team's going to play," and he's got them playing like that over the course of a pre-season. And the way that they're playing is with some style and some intensity and some pace. It's not really about, in the point that I was making, whether they're actually any good or not. Whereas with Mourinho, how his United team play seems to change from game to game, and the problem with going about it in that way is that when things start to go wrong, they don't have anything to fall back on. I mean, I'm sure you know that as a professional sportsman much better than I do, that if you have a manner of playing, then when the team isn't playing well, the manner of playing can work out. Whereas when you just everything's off the cuff. So you saw that brilliant goal that United scored last night after 3 minutes. That was off the cuff. That wasn't something that they planned. And I think with a good team, you can see when they're about to score. And when United score, it's not always, but it's usually a bit of a surprise because you haven't been able to see it coming in the manner of the possession, in the manner of the intensity, and the phases of play, whatever you want to call it. And what Sarri has done, he's taken the bloke from Napoli who made his team tick. But I mean, that's the game, isn't it? He decided he wanted to play in a particular way. Who's going to make me able to do that? And he went and got them. And such was his allure that Jorginho preferred to go and play for Sarri than go and play for Guardiola, who's an all-time great, and play for the champions of England. He decided to go and play for a manager because he wanted to play for that manager, or for whatever. I mean, maybe there are other reasons as well, but his ability to go and get Jorginho was not something that was particularly easy, probably, because he had to compete to get him. And it doesn't matter in the end. He knew what to do to get his team playing in the way that he wanted. He knew what the way that he wanted was, and he's gone and done it. And it doesn't really matter how he did it. It's not cheating to go and get a player who you knew to be good, because Mourinho went and got Matic. And I know who I would prefer if you offered me Jorginho and Matic. And so. Yeah, I don't think that's fair on Sarri particularly, but he's still got a lot to do to show that Chelsea can compete over the course of the season, and whether it actually amounts to anything or not. But just it's simply in terms of imposing a style and a style of play that you would want to watch. He's done a really good job of doing that very quickly, or perhaps it's just something that can be done very quickly by lots of managers, and Mourinho just hasn't managed it.
Yeah, Daniel, you've made Michael's morning by calling him a professional sports person. Thank you very much.
Cheers, see you again.